Hi guys, welcome back to another video. I really appreciate you joining me today. I want to thank everybody for the 87 subscribers that we're sitting at now. We're climbing up towards 100. I'm really excited about this, and let's keep the momentum going. So if you don't mind, hit a like on this video and subscribe to see more, so you get notifications when I come out with more content. This one should be a pretty short video today. It's really meant to just be thought-provoking, in all honesty. I've been looking at Apple for a long time, as you could probably tell, by the thumbnail or the title of this video. But I don't own Apple myself. My dad's owned Apple for a long time, and I've seen him kind of trim Apple to pay for other opportunities like a Palantir, like an AMD, like a HIMS. Some of these plays that I really think are going to be very valuable in the coming years. But one thing that's kind of come up in conversation more and more recently is I've been really hesitating, or putting some hesitancy on my dad for selling any more of his Apple shares. Now, I don't think he's sold the farm or anything on that, but the reasoning behind telling him not to sell more shares, or why I think that Apple is actually going to be continue to be a valuable company, even though they've kind of been downgraded the past few years, with slowed AI development and things of that nature. But when I think of Apple, and this is really just like a qualitative, thought experiment when it comes to Apple. I don't have my phone; it's recording right now. But like, Apple has been in our hands for decades, essentially. Like, they've had us in their system, in their ecosystem. There's plenty of us that have had like Apple Watches and AirPods and all sorts of other devices that have been collecting data on us for years, whether it be your steps that you've taken, your heartbeat, your sleep patterns, things like that, or even just dumb things like your notes, like what you've written in your notes to yourself, reminders that you set for yourself. I get weird, like, automatic suggestions all the time, like check your portfolio, like an E-Trade notification that is just like a Siri suggestion because that's what I do often at that time, or set a 15-minute timer when I'm going on my 15-minute break. Like, these are things that Apple does with your data already, and they're not even really big into the AI game yet. Like, they're laggards in the race, and I wouldn't disagree with that. I think that they definitely, were slow off go for sure. But I don't think that is a catastrophic failure for Apple. Historically, they haven't really been first on a lot of things. They've been best, and their whole story isn't even marketing the best technologies. I mean, we've had foldable Samsungs and better features on different phones outside of the iPhone ecosystem, and for years people still are going with Apple. Now that is kind of like a siloed view. The United States is a lot different than the rest of the world, and in fact Android has a tremendous amount of market share, especially in Asia and things like that, where people value the features over brand equity. So I think, at least for the United States, Apple has like a lifeline, so to speak, from all the data that they've been collecting, whether intentionally or unintentionally. They've been collecting this data, and one thing that's great about AI is it's able to optimize unstructured data sets. And so when we see Apple being willing to make deals, on AI, on the fronts of AI, and then we see Google come to the table, and it looks like Google is going to be, what the next Siri model is going to be operating off of. It kind of just makes me think, maybe Apple doesn't have to be first in this AI race. Who's going to have the best language model? Who's going to have the best this, best that? Like, maybe they could have gotten a strategic advantage ahead by doing that, but maybe there's another way that they can play this game by letting other people build the technologies, and then they simply acquire them and integrate them into their systems. I don't know if I would say that that's the most optimal way to go about being, on the bleeding edge of technology. But for Apple, in Apple's very unique case, where, you'll have a worse alternative to some, an Android could be 100% better in 100 different ways, and an iPhone is still going to get bought more in the United States just because of brand equity. Whatever Steve Jobs laid down in the, they don't know what they want until I tell them what they want kind of mentality. Like, that's where I see Apple being able to take the cake. I think it takes one instance of some like Google Glass type moment that is timed right. Google Glasses was not timed very well when it came out. I was in elementary school, I think, and it was like a pipe dream at the time, kind of like a cool experiment, but not something that was really gonna be the next big thing. But if you remember kind of the hype that came around, with something transformative that we haven't seen before, oh my gosh, technology in glasses, I think Apple has to have all they need is some novelty like that to really get elevated back into the conversation of, oh my gosh, yeah, these guys are formidable. I think that their new AirPods that they have coming out with live translation and things like that, when these devices start getting AI like on the device end user level, where it's not having to communicate with some data center, when we have AI at the edge, I think that Apple has a real opportunity here. Now, that's not to say that they're in the best position, but I think just like thinking them through, like I would not count Apple out. I would not count them out. I think that they've been wasting a lot of time and just kind of going value based instead of growth based, which is, I see what they were doing, but anyways, just a long way around saying I think that Apple could have a huge opportunity when they start implementing like good AI models into their program. Let's imagine a different scenario where Apple had started with everybody else, and maybe there's a scenario where their models did really well and now they're a part of their systems and stuff like that. But I've never really seen Apple do any beta testing like that, like on their customers, where they're just there probably are beta features I don't know about, so I don't mean to completely exclude that, but that just doesn't seem like their whole thing. They launch something, it works great, and people are stoked on it. That's how it works. They don't launch something, see if it works great, and then make tweaks on it in terms of, my history just kind of following Apple. So I could really see Apple waiting for these other systems to be developed, whether it's language model, video generation. I heard that they're very good at video transcription, describing things that are in a video. I don't know if they've developed that in-house or how they've worked on that, but I don't follow Apple as closely as I follow semiconductors and some other things, so I will concede, that these points are, maybe not as grounded as I'd like them to be, but, spending just so much time around the market, just around technological development, understanding different companies' technical advantages, like, I think that Apple can be, there's a lot of question marks around it. I feel like the question marks can effectively be erased via a couple acquisitions and seamless integrations into their own system. And that's really it, guys. This is really all that video was intending to talk about, was just like, man, don't count these guys out. I would even be considering taking up a position in the company. Now, I don't think that their growth is going to outpace, my other plays that I have, like an AMD, a HIMS, what was the other one I meant to mention? A Palantir or something like that. But, I feel like it's not apples to apples, but similar to an Amazon story, or a Meta story. Like, if it gets some bad news and then people abandon it. But I don't think the Amazon or Meta are bad companies, even though the street maybe didn't like some earnings reports or things of that nature. Apple has a couple more flaws that they have to work through. So I don't know. I'm just looking at them as a buying opportunity. I'd definitely be considering, getting an Apple phone. And imagine when it's just all the AI third-party apps that you're using are basically just a part of the same OS system that you use, where you tell Siri to do something and she does it, and she understands pretty much everything. And if she doesn't, like, she's not giving you some cookie cutter response that we've been getting for the past decade. So I think I'll cut it off right there, because I can tend to ramble, and you could probably tell just by the video. But yeah, just a thought I had to share with you guys. Thank you so much for staying tuned. I plan on coming out with some more stuff. This week, I'll be going on a field trip to, I believe it's Colorado Springs, for this case competition for school. And I want to kind of document that. So yeah, stay tuned. Look out for the next video. I'll have some more stuff, obviously relevant to stocks, but trying to expand some of the content on this account. But yeah, thanks again for staying tuned. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.